And to help us do that, we have a great panel, including Megan White. We're also going to be joined by Stephanie Dashwood. Now, they're going to be joined by Movable Inc.'s very own change agent, Rachel Kramer, and give tips, tricks, best practices you can all use right now, regardless of where you are in your journey. So with that, please join me in welcoming Megan, Stephanie, and Rachel.
Hi, everyone. Are we ready for some retail real talk? Yeah? Second to last session. So I'm Rachel Kramer, Director of AI Activation here at Movable Inc. And in my role, I'm helping lead our go-to-market efforts around scaling DaVinci, our AI solution that you've heard a lot about over these past 2 days. Prior to joining Movable Inc., I was on the client side at Neiman Marcus, a luxury retailer, where I spent 6 years in a variety of email and CRM roles. And there, I was actually both a client of Movable Inc. Studio, as well as Coherent Path, which is now DaVinci. So I'm intimately familiar with the shoes that you're all sitting in. Which brings me to Megan and Stephanie. So what we all have in common is that each of us have led similar transformations at multi-billion-dollar retailers. And this panel is here to explore the challenges and successes in bringing big picture visions to life, putting innovation to action. So without further ado, I welcome Megan White, Director of Email Strategy at Victoria's Secret & Co., and Stephanie Dashwood, VP of CRM and Performance Marketing at Pottery Barn Brands. So ladies, please tell us about your organizations.
Yeah, so I've been with Victoria's Secret & Co. for 16 years. I started fresh out of college. I was an intern in the project management space for victoriassecret.com, and then bounced around for several years. So a couple of different marketing roles, had some customer insights, as well as some brand strategy roles before a couple years ago kind of finding myself managing the Pink email program, and really just love the blend of the creative storytelling and the analytics that came from that. And then since then have just expanded to take on both the Victoria's Secret and Pink brands and push SMS and email.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I've been at Williams-Sonoma for about 9 years now. I started with our Pottery Barn Kids brand as an email analyst. It's really my passion, so I love email, and it's brought me to talk to all of you today. And now I oversee all of our performance marketing for the 3 Pottery Barn brands. So it includes digital and print, but similar to Megan, I've kind of just, held a lot of different positions within the performance marketing org at the company, so it's been a great experience to get me here today.
Awesome. Well, welcome. Thank you for joining me. And while we're sitting here, I'm actively trying to figure out which of us is in Antony's chair. It's probably you.
I hope so.
I wish you would
No pressure. No pressure.
But anyways, on with the show. So the title of the session includes the phrase change agent, which has been a theme throughout Think Summit. You heard it with Vivek's opening keynote. So let's start there. What does being a change agent mean to you? And we'll start with Megan.
Yeah, I think a change agent is really someone that can look at both the big picture and the what, but also look at the how. So, pitching the big idea, that's generally not the most difficult part of change. Very few of us are sitting there pitching an idea that doesn't have some sort of tangible benefit to our business. So you obviously have to be able to do that, but you have to also be able to think about the people that are really ingrained in the current process and what that actually means for them, because you need their buy-in as well, right? If you want to realize this big change, you need them to be just as invested as you are, just as invested as your leaders are in bringing this to life. And none of us like to have a big change dumped on us when we don't feel like we were a part of it at all. So I think really a good change agent recognizes that you need both the leadership buy-in and you need the buy-in of the team that is actually there in the trenches doing the work day to day to make it all kind of come together.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think that it really does you need someone who has a long-term vision, but you can't just be a visionary to actually make change happen. You do have to understand your business pressures. You have to understand what the concerns of both the executives and the teams are going to face. And you have to really know what it means to be successful in what you're trying to change. So I think you have to have all of those components to be really successful at making change seem not so scary, and make it, go through the entire org and bring everybody along with you. So it's really having both of those short-term and long-term components that make you the most successful.
Absolutely. So we've been speaking rather abstractly so far. So I'm going to dive into a tangible use case, which is leading your organization through the adoption of AI. So I know you're both at different stages of that journey. So let's start with you, Stephanie. Where are you at?
Yeah, so with DaVinci specifically, for Williams-Sonoma, we actually started piloting on 2 of our brands last year, West Elm and Williams-Sonoma. So they were our guinea pigs. They really had to kind of get into the platform, really learn it, and then bring all of that to the rest of the org and help us get on board. So they were huge in that for us. And then for me, earlier this year, we accelerated getting all the 3 Pottery Barn brands onto DaVinci very quickly. It was, yes, very exciting. So right now, the whole org is really in still kind of a discovery phase, I would say, where we're now taking what we're learning from DaVinci, what it's giving us, the insights, so that we can start to think about how to even brief into our email campaigns differently. It's obviously been a complete change for how we think about our email program before to how we think about it now. So we're just really working, honestly, very closely with ourselves internally, but then also with the Movable Ink team to make sure that we're understanding it correctly and then can report that back to all the teams in an effective way.
Awesome. And how about you, Megan?
Yeah, so we launched DaVinci a little over a year ago. So we definitely have had the benefit of having a full calendar year of hindsight. We've been through the special kind of crazy that is holiday, big promotional moments, product launches. So really benefiting from that hindsight and using that to really think about how do we then continue to grow in both efficiency as well as agility. So that's been a big area of focus for us. And it's been a very iterative process. You know, we started with a very fundamental framework of, okay, these are what the roles and responsibilities will be. This is how we're going to plan campaigns and execute campaigns. And we've learned very quickly that we had to learn how we were going to adapt those. And so a huge shout out to the broader team that is not here today, but they're really the ones that are helping lead those conversations on a daily basis. So what can we do to make our process even quicker, even more agile, even more efficient? And it's really been interesting to see how it's evolved over time. And it's really kind of, again, going back to having the people that are doing the work of the work, being really invested in how you get there. It's been a huge win. I think we're also now seeing kind of this additional opportunity for continuing to educate leaders and cross-functional partners. So we've really seen this kind of transition from what the questions were initially, which is, what is DaVinci? How is that going to impact our email program? To now kind of seeing DaVinci in the wild, and they want to know the why. Why am I getting this experience? Why are customers seeing this? So definitely something that we're continuing to focus on in terms of having that ongoing conversation with them and continued education.
Yep. So with that, you know, you're both fairly tenured at your organization, 16 and 9 years respectively. So I'm curious, you know, how do you navigate that? What are the advantages and disadvantages of that? And how has that impacted your ability to get these key stakeholders on board?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think you have the benefit of that initial credibility and trust that you have built if you have those established relationships. You know, we spent a lot of time as we launched DaVinci doing road shows leading up to it. So we kind of had the foresight of having an understanding of the key motivators of the groups that we were talking to. So instead of kind of having this big unveiling, we did these very focused conversations based off of areas of function. So it was very much, okay, the initial part was, here's what DaVinci is, here's how it's going to change our program, but then really catered the second part of it to that audience and what was really motivating them. So no surprise, the finance team wants to know about the results. So we talked to them a lot about how are we setting up our pilot, how are we reading the results of the pilot. You know, when we spoke with our merchant partners, we focused a lot on how is this going to benefit their category. So how is this allowing us to sustain more support for them outside of what we normally would have done. So they, of course, were happy to hear that. And then also our creative and copy partners, really speaking to them about the type of insights that this tool was going to enable us to have and how we could then provide them with actionable insights to make their creative even better in the future. And I think it was really successful. I think it got a lot of people excited about it, but I think it also had the benefit of kind of taking some of the mystery away from AI.
Yep.
We all know it can feel very black box.
Yep.
Yeah, very black box. The robots are running everything. And so I think this really kind of helped level set people and feel like, okay, no, there is some control. It really is a balance of both marketer and machine to bring it all to life.
100%. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I echo that. We did a lot of the roadshow too, make sure that you can speak the language of various teams. That helps get people on board. But I think like from a tenured perspective, I've held the different roles. So being able to not only speak the leadership language and have those conversations in a way that can be impactful. I also, just because of the experience, have been able to like dig in, roll up my sleeves with the team and actually walk them through step by step how it's gonna look.
Yeah.
And so I think that was helpful just to navigate some of the fear that was, I could see it in their faces and I was like, we're gonna revolutionize what you do every day. So that was great. But I think, some of the drawbacks are we also have a tenured team just at Williams-Sonoma. So, you just have sometimes people who are very stuck in what they're doing. They think it's the best way. So you do have to spend some time just even having the conversation of thinking that things can be different before you can really get into the change of actually what you're trying to move forward. So that can be the drawback if the whole company has that tenure experience too.
Yeah, and I like what you said about being in those roles and having that empathy of like knowing what they've gone through and how this will impact them. So we've talked about the initial buy-in stage, which we're both past. But we're speaking their language, what's in it for them. What about the ongoing buy-in process, right? A lot of that re-education, what has that been like?
Yeah, I think, as we said, we're still kind of in that initial discovery phase. So a lot of it still is, can we get on parity with what we're used to seeing? So campaign level insights, creative level insights, email performance at the broader scale, how that relates to our total brand and how we're hitting our finance targets, the demand targets, like all of that has to work together. So we're still learning how to do that in the most effective way where it's really clear. But also I think we're in a phase where it's just like getting people comfortable what they're actually doing. So we haven't gone through a peak yet. There is some apprehension about how all of that's going to work. So what we've done is we're trying to navigate through and kind of set up test periods of time with any upcoming big holiday before we hit the big five so that people can work and like get their hands on it before we have to plan those strategies in a bigger, more stressful way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we really have found a lot of success in just keeping the dialogue going. So we actually have monthly kind of roundtables. Everyone's invited, all of our cross-functional partners, and it really kind of serves two purposes. One, obviously an opportunity for our team to share general channel performance and insights from DaVinci, but it also really encourages that two-way dialogue. So while we come with prepared notes around what the performance was the month prior, we really encourage a lot of conversation in those meetings, and I think it's really opened up the door for them to come to us even outside of that with some of their ad hoc questions. And so I think as long as they're asking the questions, we have the opportunity to continue to educate. And I think it's really been a lesson in kind of assuming positive intent with a lot of these questions. Sometimes it can feel like you're giving the same answer over and over again. But what we've really found is that generally they come from a really genuine area of interest and just an area that they're not very familiar with. So we've really tried to foster that kind of open door relationship with them where they feel good about coming to us with those questions. And I've actually really felt like we've seen a halo benefit of that in just working more closely with teams that historically we weren't working as closely with. They now have a better rapport with us. They know that they can reach out to us. So that's been another really great benefit of those two.
That's awesome. So I'm going to double click on data because you both mentioned that as part of the initial buy-in as well as this ongoing re-education, how helpful these insights are to open up those conversations. So what type of insights have been most helpful in terms of leveraging across these various teams?
Yeah, I would say there's two really big key ones. One, and for like our merchants, our designers, our president, it's the creative level. So what's actually working? What are people clicking on? Or how much of the circ out of the library is going towards the products that I care about, that are new, that I've just launched, versus like maybe some of our more tried and true product. So it's balancing those and really giving them a lot of insights that help them then run their aspects of the business. But the creative is first and foremost like how are subject lines performing, the copywriters. So everyone really is hungry for that information. And then on the other side, as Megan mentioned earlier, it's really the financial aspect. So then at the end of the day, the creative and how it's all optimizing is great. But how are we measuring that at the brand impact level? So are we seeing our top line demand improve? Are we seeing the volume coming from email improve? How are those against some of our more traditional marketing that we were doing last year? We're in retail, so everything is year over year, month over month. So really it's, at a top line, is that improving? And so we have those two aspects that we're balancing.
Yep, what about you?
Yeah, definitely echo. The creative distribution reports have been really interesting to us. And now kind of having that full year's worth of data, it's been interesting to look at it on a trended view so we can really use that to be more proactive versus reactive in terms of the makeup of our asset library, essentially. So that's been a huge win. We also similarly get a lot of interest in those asset level insights. It's really opened up a dialogue with our creative team that we didn't really have before. We didn't have a great feedback loop with them on what was working, what's not working. And so to be able to go to them at an individual piece of creative, say, hey, this is its effectiveness in driving opens, clicks, or conversion, they really are hungry for that now. And I don't think they were traditionally kind of asking us for that level of insight. And then it gives us really actionable things that they can take away, and then we can measure it and share back with them like, hey, this is how it improved our bra creative, or things like that. So that's definitely been a great kind of way to continue the dialogue with them as well.
Yeah, no, I love what you both touched on. It was something that was impactful at Neiman's as well, is this distribution of creative relative to the sends. And so think of it as like the supply and demand of your creative library, right? So we would use these insights to see we need to create more beauty content, less men's content, or vice versa, and do that on an ongoing basis. And so a lot of our clients really like to utilize those assets or those insights as well. But with all of that said, what is next for you both on your AI transformation journey? We'll start with Megan.
Yeah, I think it's pretty simple for us. We just want to continue to scale within our email program. So the different facets of email, what else can we personalize within it? I think it's really looking at the end-to-end customer journey and how we're kind of creating those really engaging customer experiences from start to finish. And then I think we've just learned a lot over the past year, so it's remaining curious. I don't think that we have it all figured out. I think if anything, the past year has told us that there's still more things for us to discover. So I think staying very open-minded and agile in that is kind of where we're focusing.
I mean, from the email program, completely echo that. We're obviously very new onto DaVinci and personalizing what has been more of a, batched process before. So definitely excited about that. And then, in my role, just overseeing all of our performance marketing, it's really scaling personalization across the entire way we run marketing as an org. So our ultimate vision is really to serve the right content to the right person at the right time on the right channel. So if, that's kind of what I am laser focused on doing. And I think with AI, it's constantly evolving. So even when you do, you have to keep a very open mind, because once you do maybe get through the first unlock you have, AI has already changed. And so you have to then shift it again. So it's and it's, for me also instilling that more openness, that more nimble way of thinking within the org as well, because it's just going to constantly be evolving.
Yeah, the goalpost will keep moving.
It will keep moving.
Yeah. How do we remain agile, like you said?
Yes.
Thank you for both sharing those experiences. I want to take a second to zoom back out and ask something a little more philosophical, right? Which is, are change agents born or made, right? Is this a skill set that is something that folks can learn over time through experience, through mentorship, or something that is more inherent in one's own personality?
It's a great question. I fundamentally believe they can come both ways. I think you can have people who are just very innately curious and they always want to be evolving. They have more of a futuristic vision, and it's where their passion lies. And so they're probably going to be always hungry for change to be happening. But I equally think that you can be taught it. I think you can be surrounded by people who believe in change, and it can start to permeate into how you think. And I think you can develop those types of skills, that strategic thinking, that more long-term viewpoint. So I really think it depends on the environment that you're in, the people that you work with, and who you find your mentors are. Even if you're really that futuristic thinker, you might want to find a mentor who's maybe grounded a little bit in day-to-day things so that you can be an impactful change agent. And so I think you do need to balance both sides of that in order to do it in the best way possible.
That's great.
Yeah, completely agree. I mean, I think it's going to be innately something that's just in your personality, but definitely something that can be learned over time. I mean, I think about myself, and as an example of this, in my personal life, I am a very change-adverse person, but I think from the amount of time, and maybe it's unique from having 16 years of experience with one brand and seeing so many change, I think you learn to adapt very quickly. You know that things are not going to be constant, and so you just learn over time how you're going to be able to shift and mold yourself for those different moments. And so I think that's a big piece of it, and I think experience really goes a long way there. I think it's also getting over the fear of failure, you know, and really reframing failure as everything's an opportunity to learn and to grow, you know, because you really are learning something either way, right? You're either proving that what you're currently doing is the best thing, or you're proving that the other thing is better. And so there really is learning either way. And I think if you can get yourself past that, that's a huge win. And I think it also really helps to have a leadership team that is of the same mindset, right? You really need a culture and an environment that has that kind of safety net of the fast fail mentality, and then you're naturally going to have more change agents stepping up.
Yep, and I think that's a really important thing to reframe, like you said, right? That failure is a learning opportunity in and of itself. So thank you both. The last thing I want to leave the audience with is for folks in this room who are maybe newer in their organizations or in their roles specifically, but they want to make a big change. Maybe they are a little intimidated or don't know the key players yet. So what advice would you give them? Where do they begin?
Yeah, I think the biggest piece of advice when you're new to an organization is first really take that organization in. So listen, observe, ask questions to people, but take that information before you start trying to impact a lot of change. Because I think as we've talked through, understanding what people's concerns are, what their fears are, how things operate, and you talking about those is going to help you get that change done, as opposed to just coming in with a new idea and maybe creating a little friction that you actually don't need, or making people feel defensive about how they've been doing things previously. So I think that's one big piece of advice. And then I think also just be really open and present, and, you know, be someone who feels like they're a part of the team and they're not just coming in and trying to change what's already been there.
How about you?
Yeah, and I would really kind of repeat a theme that I feel like I've heard a lot over the past couple of days, you know, start small, start somewhere, you know, and really use that as an opportunity for those small wins to build the momentum to the bigger changes. And as you're kind of getting to those bigger changes, use that time to figure out who's going to be your ally, who's going to be your skeptic in this, and start to foster relationships with them. Because then when it does come time for that big change, you know how to speak to them in a language that really resonates with them.
Yep.
And then I always like to say, have a life outside of work, you know, be a whole person.
What's that?
Yeah, I know. Be a whole person. You know, it's, you know, learn how to be efficient and effective, which AI, obviously, huge unlock there. But really, whatever makes you a whole person, because I think, you know, inspiration and change comes outside of, you know, your business hours. So you can find inspiration and learning opportunities anywhere.
That's awesome. And what you just said actually sparked a memory. While I was at Neiman's, we were launching a personalization, like an agile Scrum team. And what we did to get folks on board is if they did something to help us out, whether it be merchants, you know, creative, e-com, whatever, we had little pins, PAP pins, because that was the name of our team. And we'd hand them out and award them. That was sort of our way to like evangelize the rest of the organization. And like, you wear the PAP pin, now you're a part of it. And so they feel accountable. So thank you both for the time today. And thank you all for listening. I hope you leave here feeling inspired and ready to go disrupt your marketing programs, become change agents at your own organizations, and hope you have the great rest of your afternoon.